Dan Schneider strikes again. He has just been hit with new allegations, and they're quite disturbing. I'm surprised that this didn't get included in the Quiet on Set documentary, but Business Insider did an interview with one of the cast members of All That, and her name is Lori Beth Denberg. So she was first cast on All That when she was 17, back in 1994, I believe, and got to know Dan Schneider on set there. And she told Business Insider that it was around her 19th birthday in 1995 when Dan Schneider asked for a meeting with her and allegedly showed her clips of pornography on his computer. She said the, quote, grand finale of the clips was one that depicted a woman performing oral sex on a donkey. We'll just let that hang in the air for a second. Yeah. And I gotta say, it makes sense. Like, the story, we don't know if this is true or not, but it makes sense because there were writers that were interviewed for Quiet on Set who said the same thing. They said that he would play porn on his computer, a la Kanye West, as I guess like a power trip. I don't really know what could possess someone to do that, but he did it because he had so much power and no one could say anything, and it was the 90s, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not my theory, it's just a fact that Dan Schneider was quite obviously a porn-addled, depraved individual, and that's kind of the reason he decided to insert all of these innuendo jokes into children's shows, because that's just the way his brain worked. Mm-hmm. This is just, if you're consuming degenerate pornography all the time, it's all you think about, really. It just becomes your worldview.
Right.
So I'm not saying I understand whether this is a truthful story or not, but I'm saying it makes sense with other things we've heard about him before.
Let's go from that to there's
allegations.
Other allegations. I was
Yeah.
gonna ask a question before we get to that. If these were like if this was an all male writers room, did these allegations even come out? The ones about porn, or do men just not care?
Well, I think that he wouldn't have said or done certain things if he were in an environment with only other men.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know.
And it was a majority male writers room.
Yes.
There were like 2, maybe 3 female writers, and they said that they kind of formed a coalition, but they couldn't speak out against him because he had the power to fire them.
Female rage rituals didn't
Female
exist
rage
yet.
rituals weren't a thing then, so they couldn't let out all their rage against him in the woods. But yeah, she says, I feel that is the first time he preyed on me. And they noted that that wasn't the first time he was accused of showing pornography at Nickelodeon.
He's gonna Uno reverse these people and come out and be like, "You're kink shaming me," and frankly, I'm not gonna have it. Like, that's the culture they've created in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like, am I supposed to buy that morality was ever a big thing in Hollywood? Because I don't.
So she says she was cast on All That when she was 17, and her relationship with Dan Schneider turned sexual when she was around 19. This allegedly included Dan Schneider discussing sexual topics with her over the phone, initiating phone sex with her in one instance. She said that she would sleep over at Dan Schneider's house, which is something that Brian Peck had Drake Bell do before his abuse began. They would, quote, give each other massages, and Schneider would sometimes play porn on his computer. She alleged that one night when they were watching Jeopardy together, they made a bet that whoever solved the answers correctly would get a massage. She won, quote unquote won, and Schneider allegedly fondled her breasts and put his mouth on them. But she said this was a weird, abusive friendship, and, quote, I couldn't have been more vulnerable.
She was how old?
19.
She was 19
at this time, allegedly.
Okay.
The part about the porn that he showed her was the craziest, because that's in the 90s. Like, I just have logistical questions. Like, where was he procuring bestiality, like illegal bestiality porn anyway?
That's the thing. It was a lot of work back then to get it. So
his personal assistant was responsible for that? I don't know.
He's like, look, kids these days, you could just go on the internet and find anything you want. I had to go to a video store back in the day, and then I had to rip it to my computer
We're gonna need the receipts. We're gonna need to see the receipts from the video
it
store.
off of like LimeWire or something.
Was that a thing back in the 90s?
Like, I
don't know.
Is it
man.
fair
It's
to
just
say,
a crazy thing for someone to make up if it is made up.
That she was 19. She was a legal adult who made bad decisions for herself. He was a creep who held a lot of sway and power over her, and it was really just a bad idea all around.
Yes.
Well, I think they're both at fault in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And his fault is the lack of morality versus hers is the lack of standing up for herself. And I mean, essentially maybe giving up fame in her acting career by turning him down or saying no. So it's like, which is better, which is worse?
She's
an
adult who could have just not gone to his house and even then been like, I'm not going to do Jeopardy for massages with you.
Yeah.
Well, did he groom her though? Like, he was like, hey, come over and we'll give each other Jeopardy massages.
I think it's fair to say that Dan Schneider also had an inappropriately close friendship, if you can even call it that, with Amanda Bynes. And I saw someone comment about this saying Amanda Bynes probably has the most to say and the least ability to say that for either legal reasons or the fact that Amanda Bynes is just so mentally ill that she's not a reliable narrator anymore. No one's going to see her as credible anymore.
Yeah.
But there was footage of Amanda Bynes as a child giving Dan Schneider back massages on set in front of everyone, in front of other adults. And this was normal. So it's not out of character to hear a story like this. Mm-hmm. But something can be legal and immoral at the same time. There's just no weight in saying that anymore because morals have been thrown out the window for decades now. Like, that hasn't even been in consideration.
Right. It's like people get their morals from the law.
Right.
In some instances.
Exactly. So yeah, while she was an adult and should have stood up for herself, you can still fairly say he shouldn't have done that. And he's obviously a depraved, degenerate creep.
Yes.
I would err on the side.
Those can be true at the same
like,
time.
If you have a boss, you don't play Jeopardy for massages with your boss.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
that's a fair rule of thumb.
If she was 30, I would tell her the same thing.
Dude, how do you think people get parts in Hollywood?
I understand.
I know
that.
you know better than anyone.
Yes.
So, well, no, not like that. I know you understand.
Better than anyone because we talk about these stories, not because it's firsthand experience. No, we did not have to give Tim Pool massages to get these jobs. Just for clarity.
You wait for my Me Too story one day. These stories are going to be endless and they're going to come out forever. And a lot of the comments in the chat are saying like, you can't criminalize regret because they were both adults. Mm-hmm. And what we're looking at right now is salacious headlines.
I don't even see this as a case of next morning regret. I see this as it was something that disturbed her at the time. Mm-hmm. She wasn't comfortable at the time that it was happening and buried that for job security reasons, which is not a good enough reason to disregard your own personal boundaries. So it's not really that she enjoyed it at the time and regretted it later. She didn't enjoy it at all. It was always bad. Right. She never look at Dan Schneider. Would you tell me anyone wanted to have sex with that guy? Let's just be honest, okay? But yeah, they're both responsible for their own parts in the story.
The headlines, when I was reading through, all of the tweets are saying, lock him up, there's plenty of evidence already. And I was like, you can't lock up a dude for doing something that wasn't illegal, no matter how creepy it was. Yeah. And that's the problem here. That's the crux of the issue. Is that
social shame isn't a thing anymore. So there's really no weapon to wield against someone like this. But he did issue a statement in response to these allegations.
This was a fairly ridiculous
And
statement.
This is, by the way, simultaneous with his defamation lawsuit against the producers of Quiet on Set. So here was his statement. Denberg's accusations are wildly exaggerated and in most cases false. As I have previously stated, there were times, particularly in the early years of my career, that I made mistakes and exhibited poor judgment as a leader. If I did that with respect to Lori Beth Denberg, I sincerely apologize to her, but I cannot apologize for things I did not do. Kevin Spacey, take notes. You can't apologize for something you didn't do. And he noted in his statement that the writer of this Business Insider report, Kate Taylor, was one of the executive producers on Quiet on Set. The fact that she would pursue allegations regarding what may have happened between adults nearly 30 years ago, only a week after I filed a defamation suit accusing Quiet on set of being intentionally false and misleading, seems more than coincidental. And I have to agree with that statement. I think Kate Taylor, she was one of the people that was like giving interviews in Quiet on Set. She was basically narrating the story of the whole documentary. Yeah. She does have it out for Dan Schneider, and, you know, she has her own self-serving reasons for making him look bad, which is that it advances her career.
Yeah.
It's kind of sick that we're in the world where it can advance your career to get massages from Dan Schneider, and it also advances your career to interview the woman who gave massages to Dan Schneider, and it's just a self-perpetuating cycle of degeneracy and evil.
Trauma dumping for profit.
Yes, exactly.
Trauma dumping for profit.
Oh, Victoria Justice also had a statement about Quiet on Set recently. She just couldn't
keep quiet. She had to say this.
Yeah, well, I would expect that they're going to be asking her about this, so she had an answer already in the chamber. But Victoria Justice opens up about being treated unfairly by Dan Schneider during her time at Nickelodeon. She was on the show Victorious, that was named after her. Something that was very evident in the documentary is that Dan had a very large ego, and sometimes that ego clouded his better judgment and affected the way he treated people. And there were times I felt like I was being treated unfairly.
She's like, look, I heard all those Lori Beth allegations. I'm going to tell you right now, he got the last piece of lasagna in the craft services line one day, and I still had scenes to shoot. And frankly, I found that unfair.
Well, he said that he needed it more than her, and she needed to get down to a size 0.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media, and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.